Hi guys, Victor from Tech Heads here. Before we get started today, I would like to announce once again that our Patreon is officially live, but this time with some extra features. When you sign up, you officially become a producer of the show. This means that you will get access to exclusive behind-the-scenes content such as our extensive show notes. On top of this, you will also have access to the episodes 4 days earlier than everybody else. If this sounds good to you, feel free to check it out at patreon.com/techheads.
3, 2,
Now on with the show.
1. So, here we go.
I like that one because it's like one person that claps first.
It's almost like hesitant. You're like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We'll follow. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me actually clap. All right. Tech Heads back again. Welcome to the show, everybody. Grab your coffee, grab your tea, whatever you drink. Pop a squat, relax. Anna and I are here to talk about stuff as usual. So, yeah, today we'll be talking about CSS Fundamentals, not, the entirety of CSS, but, just some more important stuff that maybe we didn't cover in a previous episode where we've mentioned it. But before we do any of that, I got to know how you're doing, Anna.
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Crazy week, but,
Right.
still standing. I finished a cool Brad Traversy tutorial for this task tracking app. It's more of like an MVP. I'm going to put my own touch on it and do some other things. But yeah, it's with Vue, and I love Vue, so that was fun putting that together. Right now, it stores the tasks in a JSON file. So when you refresh the page, it doesn't take away the tasks and it keeps them there. So you have to actually delete them with the button, which is pretty nice. But I started trying to implement it into Firebase with the real-time database that they offer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that is my next thing. I'm not done with it yet. I kind of just started on it maybe last weekend or mid this week. I can't really. It's all kind of just mashing at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't even
I'm
believe
with
it's
you.
Saturday already. I feel like we recorded 2 days ago.
I know. Yeah, no, it really does feel like that. I feel like every time I blink, it's already like Thursday or Friday every week.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, what are we going to talk about this weekend? So here we are. But yeah, no, it's definitely a cool topic because I know that we've already done episodes on HTML and CSS and JavaScript before, but those three combined, we didn't go that much into CSS. So I think today should be fun.
Yeah. Well, it also hit me doing this app also that I know CSS and I kind of know how it works because I've been doing it for years, but I only do it because I have to. I'm not one of those guys that just, I don't live for CSS.
Yeah.
It's something I have to be like, oh, how do I position this?
Right.
Or what's the difference between absolute and relative? Stuff like that I just never remember or retain. So I always have to look it up.
Same.
But yeah, I figured it'd be kind of cool to do a whole CSS episode. And this also kind of helped me retain some info that I think I'll need in the future because you can't really escape CSS if you're a developer. So
Yeah, no, for sure. I think there was one of the projects that we're working as a group in school now, we had to create a mock-up, of based on a wireframe that was designed for a report.
Ooh.
And there was just to present a screenshot of of how we envisioned it to the RA that was going to be approving it. We had to, throw a little CSS in there to center things or, create a div and then add a class to that. And then, the positioning, things like that. So like you said, 100%, you can't escape it. Sometimes you just have to see what's the most efficient way to do those things. But luckily, there are definitely more, I would say, advanced ways, to do it. Because back in the boot camp, I remember some of the first exercises, they made us suffer through it. It was raw HTML and CSS, and I struggled with it. Oh my gosh, it was just a different, mindset and so many different properties that you can use in CSS. So it's good to know a little bit, and then you can always look it up too.
Yeah, no doubt. It's funny because I met another developer recently, and he's senior level, been doing this for probably 10 years. And he's like really into CSS, but I mean, he's well versed in basically everything. But it's so funny because he works with a bunch of other senior level developers, and they always go to him for CSS advice because they don't really know it that well, even though they're so experienced. They're just like, how would I center this in the center of this div? Like simple stuff like that. It just like escapes some people's minds, like me.
Yeah, same.
So without any more disrespect to CSS, let's get into it.
Sure.
Yeah, we're going to be taking a look at one of the big three web technologies. Some of you can't stand having to deal with it, and some of you simply can't get enough of it. You know, it just depends on what kind of person you are. But everyone, will you please put your hands together for CSS? Ooh. And some of you may remember that we here at Tech Heads refer to CSS as the artist of the big three, while HTML was like the construction worker and JavaScript was the wizard. I won't go too deep into detail about those since we already did talk about those, but yeah, we're focusing on CSS. As a quick refresher though, just to give it some context, HTML is what defines the text and overall structure of the page, in case you didn't know. And JavaScript defines the behavior of all of those things. And then CSS is what actually defines the appearance and style of everything on the page. So CSS is a rule-based language that we developers use by defining specific groups of styles that get applied to elements found in the HTML file. So,
perfect.
Yeah. If you want to...
Great definition.
Thank you. I was proud of it. If you want to do something as simple as change the color of the text to red, or something as crazy and complex as creating, you know, interactive 3D animations, you need CSS to do all of those things.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I know that we've already defined it before, right? Because it's much easier to call it by the acronym, but yeah, no, I mean, your definition is perfect. Wouldn't change a thing.
Thank you. Cascading style sheets, in case you were curious. Yeah. Well, the way this rule-based language works, it is really simple to get started. You know, usually people, when they're learning it, they're learning HTML in tandem with it, typically, because it's really not too heavy of a topic. So it's really nice to learn them together, just because they play so well together. So you have elements in HTML like divs and headers and p tags for, you know, paragraphs and, you know, just like stuff like that in HTML. Pretty easy to grasp. And then in CSS, you use selectors to grab those elements that you're going to style. So just getting into basics really quickly, there are many different ways to grab elements that you want to style with CSS. The star is what selects everything on the page. This one is like for the, you know, the crazy people out there. Sometimes it's really, right. You know, it's a brave thing to do, I'll admit. You can even you can use div to select every div on the page, which is also like, okay, sure. You better know what you're doing. But, and then you would use a period to select the classes. So this is something that you would use to identify, you know, something in your HTML. But you can also use an ID, and you would grab that with the pound symbol or hashtag, as the Zoomers call it.
Right.
Without these, CSS wouldn't know where to apply the styling that you want to do and specify. So this is probably the most important thing to understand before anything else in CSS, and luckily it is pretty simple and easy. It's so embarrassing. I still have to Google like which one is ID and which one is class for CSS.
You know, I feel like that's funny because I feel like that's probably like the only thing I remember other than how to like structure the CSS, which is like you reference the class or ID, then you have your curly braces, and then you start to like define the properties and the values, you know. But I mean, other than maybe like the font size, the text align, things like that, everything else I still have to like look up.
Sure.
Because I always forget. But
and this is coming from somebody I work in CSS every single day, and I still am like, I'm just so automatic about it sometimes. I'm just like, okay, I know this has to go here, blah, blah, blah. So I don't really get too involved usually, unless it's a personal project. That's when I get a little more stoked on it, or if it's a little more of an exciting project at work, that's when I get involved. But yeah, it's something that I told myself I would start understanding a lot better, because I recently realized how much I didn't understand about CSS, and I hate getting stuck at things at work, and I have to bother somebody about something so dumb. So it's just it is important to get the basics, even if you don't really like it. It makes you a more well-rounded developer, and yada yada yada. So
right, yeah, absolutely.
So not caring about the topic today. CSS.
We're
whatever.
like, yeah, CSS. Well, I mean, honestly, like you said, it's funny because I 100% agree. Like when you're taught HTML, you're most likely also going to be taught CSS because they complement each other. But also, there is no CSS if there isn't HTML. You can have HTML without CSS, but it looks like bare bones, straight out of like the 80s or the 90s, even those old pages, had some sort of like styling on them, brought to you by CSS. But yeah, it's cool to know that, with just a little bit of styling, I mean, you can really go ham on with like custom CSS and make your page look amazing. But I mean, just to, help you translate or get started on an idea if you don't want to like implement a library or a framework or whatever that we now have nowadays. It's you can get away with, just using a little bit of CSS. But yeah.
And it is cool that it doesn't take a lot of CSS to make something look insanely better, like without the help of frameworks or anything, which we'll get into later. But yeah, just like even like adding a single line of CSS to like add a cool gradient in the background where it's like blending from blue to purple or whatever. That's just bare bones, simple CSS, and it's already like, whoa, this looks so much better.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I feel like it's I mean, I don't know like what else you can really compare to. I think back in like the episode with the big three, one place when I was just starting out the boot camp, a good analogy to like understand how HTML, CSS, and JavaScript all work together, how they relate to each other, was the human body, where you have the bones as the HTML, the muscles as JavaScript, and then like the skin and like your hair and all those other things to like make you more physically appealing. That's the CSS. So I think so yeah, that was a good way of understanding it, because you really do need especially nowadays, when you're like a web page is no longer supposed to be just static like HTML and CSS. Like it has to have some kind of behavior behind it. So you're most likely going to have your JavaScript, but yeah, CSS is what can make it more user friendly and intuitive, and like I guess even comforting, because I feel like there are websites that can be so like cold and like they are not that interactive.
You just feel so uncomfortable.
You do. Right, yeah, you feel uncomfortable using something that's like so poorly built, so I feel like the styling goes a long way. That's why like there are even career paths that are just solely like what's the word, solely like based on the user experience, like UI designers, like the web designers or whatever. But for that very reason, because the first impression that you have, like even you were just talking about last week about, I think it was like a local business over there, right?
Oh,
that you guys really like, that has an awesome website. I mean, you see, like it makes you want to use it again. I think that's the important thing to like take away from good, a good theme or like good styling on your page.
Yeah, that was a fish and chips sort of company. And yeah, and like even if they had the same quality of food, but I couldn't order the food on their website and enjoy the experience, like I probably wouldn't go through the trouble of getting their food, which is so like posh and stupid to say, I feel like, but at the same time, I know like there's other people on the same page, because it's like you wouldn't go through the trouble of calling or, trying to get through their jumbly, terribly put website, and like,
Right.
you might not even get your food because it's not a reliable system. But I know it's a great site, so I like it's just something I can trust, and I feel comfortable ordering again.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't just go to restaurants; it goes in every industry. Like,
Right.
people just aren't going to use it if
Absolutely.
they don't feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about having a good time.
Oh yeah. For sure.
One super important fundamental point on CSS is the position property. So this is a property that you would use to specify the type of positioning used for an element. And to me, it's still confusing distinguishing the difference between all of these values. So, don't get too annoyed if you have to rewind and hit that back 30-second button so many times. But it is a super confusing thing for a lot of people, myself included, still. So since I'm not a CSS guru, I regularly have to make sure I'm using the right one when I'm using CSS. So don't feel bad. So there is position is the property, and then there's there's 5 main values that you can put to it, and these go to the elements in the HTML. So there's position static, and this just means it's not positioned in any special way because it's going with the normal flow of the page. So this, you can think of this as like the baseline position, essentially.
Right.
The next one you might go through is position relative, and this is when an element is positioned relative to its normal position, but you can adjust it away from the normal position with directional properties. So the position is a property, and then you could do a different property below it, like left or right or top or bottom. And you would, the value would be the distance, like pixels or rems or fractal units, whatever it is. You could specify it that way. And with this value of relative, other content won't be adjusted to fit into any gap left by that element. So it's a little confusing already, but I promise it'll kind of tie in, once you actually get some practice with it. There's also a fixed position, and this is where an element is positioned relative to the viewport, so the thing that you're looking at. So this means it always stays in the same place, even if you scroll up or down. And this sounds annoying and ugly when you think about it in practice, like just a div of some text that just won't go away even though you're going down the page or whatever. It sounds annoying, but you actually might see this done with a sidebar menu that's always on the left side of the page. So as you scroll down, you always have the menu on the left side if you need to refer to it and go to something else. Or I don't know, you might use it for an area for ads. Like some sites, it's like the ad never goes away on the right side, something like that.
Yep.
They would use probably position fixed for that. I mean, but there's so many different ways you can use it.
Yeah.
There's also position absolute. This is when an element is positioned relative to the nearest positioned ancestor. But if there's no ancestor, then it's just using the document body and moves along with the page scrolling like normal. And then the final one, this one's crazy because it's 2 combined, position sticky. And this one is based on the user's scroll position, and it toggles between relative and fixed based on the scroll position. So just to paint a picture, I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But you've seen this before many times, actually. So an example might be if you scroll down a page and then you get to a certain box with some text, just for simplicity. And then as you scroll past it, usually it would disappear and then you would, keep going down. But in this situation, you scroll down to it, and then as you continue scrolling down, it decides to stay fixed at the top of the page now.
Oh, okay.
But then when you go back up, and then it goes back to its original place, and then it disappears. So it triggers based on the scroll position.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, this can be done, pretty well, and it'll look really cool. But I mean, sometimes if you don't use it right, it looks pretty crazy. So,
Yeah, right.
yeah, those are all the different positions. Yeah, still confusing to me. So don't fret if
Right.
you're like, what the hell?
Yeah, I remember one of the first projects that we had to do at the boot camp. It was like raw HTML and CSS, and we had to start using those properties, to like build essentially like a static page with our information, like an about me page, I think it was, or link like 3 pages. So we had to know how to use buttons and all that stuff. But I think the CSS is what killed me, because like defining the elements, adding the text on there and everything, like when you had to wrap the text around a picture, like things like that, and like getting the margins just right, aligning all of the elements just right, the footer, the header, the footer, that kind of stuff. That's when I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm going nuts. I mean, the final product wasn't too bad. It wasn't off of what they asked us to do, but there was still like a few things that I could not figure out. I think I even scrapped the first version I had and rebuilt, like from scratch. The day before we had to turn it in, because I was just like, I pulled an all-nighter and I was like, yeah, no, I have to start this from scratch. I was just getting so confused. But yeah, CSS, it's just like you gotta struggle a little bit, and then things start to like click. You start to like recognize the names of the properties and values that you can use, and the behavior. Because I feel like that's the thing, the struggle with like defining things verbally, especially for this. It's so hard to visualize, but once you start to actually write the code, you're like, oh, okay, so it moved it that way. Why is that? And
Yeah.
then you start to understand what the definition of each one of those actually means, like when you're seeing it.
Yeah, I remember my first portfolio site for the bootcamp being so stinking ugly. And
Yeah, mine was.
I definitely have restarted a couple times since then, obviously. But yeah, I couldn't get my head around, I guess, the layout. I thought I was doing it right. But then when I went to the CSS, I realized I was like not styling the correct things that were supposed to be being selected. And, things would be like half blue for the page and then the rest of it would be white. So I realized like, oh man, I'm messing up the layout somewhere. Like, what do I do? So luckily there's two main concepts that they're semi-similar, I guess, but they're also something you can either use one or the other, or you can use both in your projects. So there's Flexbox. Oh my God. There's Flexbox and there's Grid. So these are concepts that make positioning and establishing the page layout easier than just trying to organize your content all willy-nilly on the spot, which I've done many times, and I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. Like, I regret it. I didn't realize this thing was going to be so big. What do I do?
Right.
So CSS Grid Layout, this one I really liked when I first started using it. It's a two-dimensional layout system that lets you lay content out in rows and columns on the page, and has many different features like that make building complex layouts very straightforward. There's also Flexbox, which is a directional-based layout system and gives you the ability to alter its items' width, height, in order to best fit the available space. So those are pretty important things that you should know if you're, trying to make your pages actually look nice. Otherwise, you get to other screens maybe and it just looks terrible, or you just you have maybe one just page where the text goes from the one edge of the screen all the way to the other, but then somewhere else it'll look pretty. That kind of goes into not exactly mobile responsiveness, but also just like different viewport sizes in general. That's where those would be the most handy. But yeah, we can move on to mobile responsiveness actually, now that we're kind of on that topic. So
For sure, yeah.
I know Anna's been guilty of this, so this will be I'm not throwing shade or anything, but let's say you spend hours making a page look amazing, in CSS. You like finally have it all figured out, and you're so proud that you go ahead and you push it out for the world to see. But then you go check to see how it looks on your phone, and you realize, oh crap, I missed a super crucial step. I didn't make the page mobile responsive.
Oh my gosh.
I think we've all been there. What do you think?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I think there was an instance, just earlier this year that I, was grinding and building this app for about like 2 weeks. Was happy with the desktop product, and like I showed it to one of our managers, and he's like, "Okay, great, it works fine, it looks good, it's simple, straight to the point." And then he never asked for, the phone version, but I was like, oh, we have a bunch of people who have company phones. What if they try to use it on the phone? So long and behold, I pull it up and it looks like you said, like crap, So I was like, no, okay. So, I just had to go into the CSS and, set like the breakpoints to be able to make it a lot more mobile friendly, obviously. And yeah, it turned out it wasn't that hard to fix, but obviously I had to do a bit of digging. There were like definitely a couple of like specific examples, because what was happening was I had the page, and the behavior was like you click a button on the desktop, you click a button, and then it like kind of like extends that div horizontally, but on the phone I had to do it vertically, because you don't have that horizontal space. So that was like, one of the things that I had to figure out, but eventually it ended up like looking really nice and still works just fine. But yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind, because I mean, a lot of people do conduct, every single kind of like interaction that they have with the internet or the outside world on their phone. Like some people don't even have computers anymore, because your phone is your pocket computer. So you definitely have to consider that like right off the bat and not forget it like me.
Yeah, that's why a lot of freelance developers, though, maybe advertise that they put like a mobile first development process in mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is it's way easier down the line too if you put that as a priority, because then you don't have to do what Anna did and go back and dig and see how everything was really constructed. So if you go with the clear plan that you were going to make it mobile responsive or tablet responsive or whatever, it just makes everybody's lives a lot easier, especially if it grows and gets bigger or you need help from somebody else. But yeah, there's a lot that really goes into it, such as the viewport, ensuring images dynamically change to like a more appropriate size, because usually they're fixed. So then, what do? Like we have to shrink it down to the mobile so it doesn't take up the whole screen. Even changing the layout from a couple of columns that you might see on a desktop to a single column for a phone. So yeah, there's clearly no single way, but one of the most important things that you really should do for mobile responsiveness is utilize media queries, which we learned at the boot camp, and I was like, whoa, this is mind-blowing. They're used for making extensive changes to the layout of the page to certain screen sizes. So they're basically filters that change the style based on different rules that you establish, like screen size based on pixels, type of device also, the orientation of the device, so portrait or landscape, and even if the device is using touchscreen or not, because not all mobile devices are touchscreen technically. Like you can maybe have some enterprise level thing where it's just some tablet, I don't know, but you have to use a mouse or something, I don't know. But yeah, there's some small computers out there too, so it's just best to keep that in mind while you're developing something for the world as well.
Yes. Yeah, because I mean, eventually you can't bet on the fact that no one on this specific device or in this specific dimension range is not going to use your device. Like you have to prepare for the fact that someone might. Because if there are devices that are produced and they have specific screen dimensions, then people are going to use it, so you have to to accommodate that demand. So it's definitely, like you said, I think there are a lot of companies that have the mobile first mentality, or that's the how a lot of them go by now, because I mean most people will eventually get to that website on their phone, and you have to make sure that it looks nice. Otherwise, you might not get them back.
Exactly, yeah.
It's what we were talking about earlier. Like if you have a poor, like let's say you go to like a huge, let's say Apple. Okay, this will never happen, but let's just say that Apple never cared about their mobile version of the website. Who would even buy, like, I mean, it's so easy to buy something now on the Apple website that, on your phone, but because they know how much traffic they can get through a phone device rather than just, desktop. So yeah, it just doesn't make sense for you to like not, for you to not have, especially if it's retail or like a retail company or something like that, like you have to make sure that you probably work on the mobile version first and then desktop and iPad and all the others.
Yep. It may sound complicated, but it's way more complicated.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
To make it actually look good, like even if you have like a weather app of some kind and you want it to look good on mobile, obviously, because you're a human developing. Yep. And,
right.
You could go as far as having different icons completely because they look better on the phone just for when that person is on the phone. And instead of having, the temperature column and the icon column and the forecast column,
yep.
You're going to have to bring it down a couple columns because you can't fit all of that and make it visible on a phone. So this involves like not only just like restructuring, but like for a good mobile friendly sort of web app, it's going to require like sometimes artists to come in and actually redesign the whole thing. So that's why it is really important to have everything, not everything, but, have everything that is worth building and showing to people, really make it mobile friendly.
Yeah, I think like this is, like we're just getting like, we're probably just like scratching the surface, but this is probably like a really interesting conversation that like, a UX designer would be able to share more, because there's a lot of research that goes into how, a web app is designed, especially by like the biggest enterprises on earth. Like they know what they're doing, and I think that on the phone more than even the desktop, it's probably all about like separation of concerns, like what does the customer need to see right off the bat, because you're already working with a much smaller area than compared to a desktop or even an iPad screen. That if you want to convert that customer into like, or like that visitor into a customer, into a sale or whatever, you have to make sure that you show them what you would think that they want, that they visited your website for. And it's so, I mean, it's very interesting because I feel like you also have to adapt a lot, like, web apps and big, businesses, they make changes like constantly to how they're presenting their information on their pages. So it's it's a very interesting topic. I would love to like know more, but if anyone does, drop us a line on Twitter or send us an email. Like this is a really interesting topic that I'm fascinated about, like, because there's a whole like lot of psychology that goes behind that, that I think plays a big role into this, into the design. So yeah, the CSS just like presents it, but why is it there? Like that was a decision that was made by a big team of people. So
yeah, it's a big world, CSS. But there luckily are things out there like frameworks for CSS that make developing a lot easier, because sometimes I don't want to code all the stuff that I know I could do with the one line, so I'll use something like maybe Tailwind, which I know you have some experience with. So can you tell us a little bit about Tailwind?
Yeah, sure. So Tailwind is one of like I just recently found out about it. So I don't know if it's considered like a library or a CSS framework per se. But it is a way that you can present, or you can edit your CSS without having to assign, like particular classes or IDs to every single element. So the way that they define this is by being utility first. You style the elements by applying pre-existing classes directly in the HTML. So, the way that I did it, I was following a tutorial on YouTube by Traversy Media as well. And I loved it. I mean, it was as simple as, npm install, and then you have like that Tailwind already installed in your project directory. And then you can start using the, those HTML properties. So like within the class, or the HTML element itself, you can specify, certain like attributes. And then if you're running a live server, you're going to see the changes right away on your page. So that's something that I really like, because if like going back to what we were discussing earlier, like if you do raw HTML and CSS, what happens is you have to you define that class and ID, and then you have to create let's say a style.css file, and that's where you're going to start editing, the properties, or adding new properties to the class or ID that you defined in an element. And Tailwind kind of eliminates the need for that, because you're mainly, working directly on the HTML. So that's the really cool thing about it. And then there are a couple of other cool, like, core concepts that they offer. They are, like you said, they're mobile friendly first, or mobile first, like a philosophy. So, that kind of assures you that you're already building something that will look nice on a phone. You're not going to have to like create all those like at media tags, breakpoints and everything for the page to behave a certain way on a different, the size device. So, responsive design is already implemented. And then they also have, functions and directives. So like a function, let's say if you do a screen with a parentheses, just like you're calling a function, it will give you like an output of what the breakpoint is. Let me find that in the documentation. I have it right here. Yeah, so the screen function accepts like a screen name, like MD for medium, and it generates the corresponding media feature expression. So it will give you like what the dimension should be, given that parameter they're passing through to the function. And then another interesting thing is you can use directives like the @ symbol and then Tailwind. You can use those to be able to to define specific components, or like the base and utilities and other screens. So it's very I think that this is where the programming, or like the logic, meets CSS, because straight up CSS is just like the class and ID, and you have your properties, your values, and things like that. So this one starts to get, I think it gives you a bit more control about what you're going to be, targeting, components and things like that. So it's really cool. I'm not, like a veteran using Tailwind at all, but I feel like, if I had to, I built a little F1 project, a couple months ago, and that was using Vue.js and Tailwind. If I had to recreate that using raw CSS, I don't even know how long it would take me. Or even with Bootstrap. I know that we haven't even talked about Bootstrap, because Bootstrap uses the grid layout, like with the columns, So I don't even know how long it would take to recreate, what I built with Tailwind in a matter of like a couple hours, using raw CSS or just, Bootstrap. So yeah, it's really cool. Like, I know that I wouldn't, I don't know, like for beginners, if I would necessarily recommend this as like the first interaction you have with CSS. I think you do have to like look into the position elements, things like the properties that you mentioned earlier. But this is something to look into a little later, where you can see, I'm sure that they're like big, Fortune 500 companies or whatever that use this kind of library and framework to make their sites look really nice. So yeah, I highly recommend it. I like it a lot.
Nice. Yeah, I checked it out, and yeah, I liked what I saw, and I realized that I really should be using it a lot more. And yeah, you said it's just a quick npm install. It's super lightweight, nothing crazy whatsoever. And
yep.
That would save you so much time. So why not do it?
Yeah, it's something new, and it's also shortens up the the actual code, because like your HTML is, I mean, maybe like the tags are going to get a little long depending on how many attributes, you'll add to them, because that's how Tailwind works. Like you have to specify, like the classes directly in the HTML, but you're not going to have a long, like style.css with like a gazillion references to specific elements, and
Right.
properties to like manipulate them. So I think that this one looks really nice. And I think the idea is to like clean up the code a bit. And yeah, you're installing a dependency, but it's really not that bad.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, I think with that is enough CSS for today. I saw some crazy article on The Verge, though, about Roku. Do you have a Roku? No, you have Apple TV.
I used to have Roku years ago. I gave it up, man. I hated it. Hated it.
Really?
I think it was the specific device that we had. Yeah. It wasn't the top of the line at the time, but oh my gosh, it was so laggy. I hated it. It was the worst, one of the worst purchases, like electronic purchases. Wow. Sorry, Roku. Maybe they learned, but the one device I had sucked.
Wow. Yeah, I have a Roku TV. Okay, so yeah, in case you guys don't know what Roku is, it's a company that specializes in streaming sticks or devices, kind of like Amazon Fire Stick or Apple TV, stuff like that. Yeah, and I don't mind our TV. It is a little laggy sometimes, and I had to go into like the admin GUI for my internet just to like enable Roku. It was like way too much work.
Oh, wow.
I had to like change the channel from like 8 to 12 or something. I don't even remember what I did, but something crazy like that. It took days to figure out because it just wouldn't work. But it worked at our old place for some reason. But same internet provider, everything. So I have no idea what happened. But anyway, Roku has opened the gates to allow developers to totally customize their experience with their Roku and do whatever the heck they want by launching an independent developer kit.
Oh, okay. That's
Isn't that
actually
crazy?
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could make an app to like change the temperature of your house from your TV, or you could show like traffic conditions or the weather or news, like make your own dashboard in your TV, or even make a game if you want, because you can use whatever programming language you want. But yeah, like the whole goal is like for people to explore anything outside of the streaming channels that they already offer and just make cool things. I think it's pretty crazy. Like we'll be able to do that soon. Like there's been times where I get funny little crazy ideas and I'm like, oh, that I can't code on my microwave, or I can't code my sink, like stupid stuff like that. But I mean, hey, like the TV, like that's crazy. That would be so funny to do a Roku app of some kind.
No, yeah, that's actually really cool. I guess that's a good thing about them trying to, stay relevant. But that's actually, that's really cool. It gives you so much like freedom, to do whatever you want, and right on the TV too. So that's even cooler.
I don't know how it works with Apple TV. I don't know if it's all like the same as iOS development. If it's the same process, I don't really know.
Yeah, I haven't looked. Like, you mean building like an iOS app for the TV?
Yeah.
If they allow that.
Is Apple TV iOS?
No, it's Apple, like it's TV OS.
Okay.
It's a different operating system, yeah.
I wonder if you would use Swift, or if you can use whatever you want.
Yeah. I think, I don't know, because I don't know what they use to write those on, because I know that a lot of like iOS apps tend to be in like React Native, or you can use React Native, but I think that Swift is probably like, I don't know, the safest bet. But I don't know. I'm not too sure. It would be cool though if they allowed us to build anything. I think I would build like a crypto watching app or something like that, just to check every now and then. Because I always have to pull up my phone.
A little widget on the TV
a widget.
while you watch TV, and then it'll show crypto on the TV. Yeah.
Right. See, like a little, Coinbase or whatever. I don't know, anything to just like have like show some reference of this, the crypto market. Because right now I have to use my phone or my computer. There's unless I pull up the browser on the TV, and I never really like doing that.
Yeah, me neither.
So
Yeah.
that's cool that Roku is going for it.
Yeah. What's your recommendation this week?
Okay, cool. So last week, wait, let me before I get into my recommendations. So I have some progress notes on, or actually like a little progress report. So I have not received my Mac yet. I can't wait to get that thing. I know. Seriously, I feel like throwing tomatoes right now. I mean, I ordered it like, within an hour after the event ended. A whole bunch of people got theirs before, and I feel like mine is, stock like configuration because it's the M1 Max in 32 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte. So it's something that it has been in stock this week. Like it was in stock at one of the stores around here, the Apple stores, on opening day or launch day, which was Tuesday, and then it was in stock again yesterday. But I already bought mine, and it's scheduled to be delivered by the end of next week. But still, like, no activity, still like stuck on processing hell. And I heard that like Apple is having all sorts of like issues getting that stuff from China into the US, like a bunch of like delays. And I'm like, oh well, that's great. Like I just wish I would have gotten it already, but hopefully next week, once we do our next pod, then I will have some happier like news, or I won't shut up about it. But yeah. Meanwhile, I've just been following like a shipping thread on the Apple subreddit where people are complaining about the exact same thing. They're like, oh, I haven't gotten mine, and okay, so. Apparently in some metro areas, you can have it delivered the same day if you buy from the store. But that means that they're actually handing the purchase, like the computer, to an Uber Eats driver, and then that person is supposed to bring it to you. And I've seen a few posts of people that said, I literally stepped out of my house because this person said that they were, in front of my house, and then they drove away. So they marked as delivered and got to keep the computer, $3,000 computer. Jeez. And I'm just like, oh, no way. I would much rather, do pickup in store. But now I'm stuck in this delivery, situation. So they were supposed to deliver to my doorstep because it's gonna come through like UPS or something. But I would never do, like one of those contractor gigs or whatever for that kind of stuff, because
no way.
It's too expensive. Like food, yeah, sure, but not a Mac.
You can steal my cheeseburger. You can't steal my computer.
No way. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine like you have to then prove, to Apple that you never got your device, and they're like, well, but this person said they delivered it. Yeah, no. Anyway, mine is getting delivered hopefully by the end of next week, and then I will do like a little, first impression like review, and then, we can talk about it later on. But my official recommendation for today is I got the MX Master 3 mouse. It has been around for a little while. It's by Logitech, and I love it. I mean, I was looking for a Bluetooth mouse, and I should have probably gotten this when I got my Logitech MX keys earlier in the year, the keyboard. But at the time, I didn't really like need a mouse, but now I'm so happy that I have them both, because I can connect to like 3 different devices on the keyboard and the mouse. And this mouse is much bigger than, any other mouse that I've used, but I love it. It's so nice to use. And I tried to like even go back for a few minutes to my previous one. I was like, my hand doesn't even fit in that one anymore.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get, to get used to nice things. And it was, I've been using it for work and school for the past week, and I love it. I'm pretty happy with it. I highly recommend.
All right. Yeah, I've had my eyes on that for a couple weeks because I've seen some other, people online just recommend it and use it, and it looks really comfy. And
it is.
Yeah, I've gone through the same thing where like I had a slightly smaller mouse than this one, but then I got this one, and now I'm like, whoa, like touching the other one, I just don't even understand like how I didn't get hand cramps. But yeah, my next little my next little purchase is definitely going to be that mouse, so I'll be checking that out soon. my recommendation is something that I literally found this morning, and I am so stoked on it, and I actually used it for today's show. So it's called the Bear app, and it's for taking notes. Not a sponsor. I feel like I sound like I'm a sponsor to everything I recommend, but I swear, not a sponsor. I literally found it this morning. So
we recommend them because they're good.
Exactly. But not to say that we're not open to sponsors. So.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, just throwing that out there. But, casually moving on. It's a super duper nice and flexible note-taking app that I really like. There's advanced markup editing. There's different themes. You can use hashtags for organizing it, so it kind of looks like Slack or Discord a little bit. You can export them in HTML, PDF, DocX, MD, JPEG, literally all of them. So like you don't really need to do anything else. It's amazing, and it's what I recommend this week. But it's
cool.
free, so that's also cool. But if you pay for the Pro, you get more themes, you get more export options, you can have it sync between your devices. So obviously, I went for the Pro version. I played with it for a couple hours, and I was like, you know what, the Pro version's worth it. Let's do it. So it was like $15 for the whole year. So
oh, nice. Yeah. That's not bad.
Yeah, totally worth it. So I love it. It looks beautiful. It looks like I literally wrote and edited a beautiful looking article of some kind. It looks great with no effort at all. And I really like that you can just use all these different shortcuts that the Apple Notes app doesn't usually allow. They have to actually right click and highlight the text to do that certain things because there's no shortcut for it. So this has all the shortcuts I need. There's emojis too, so you can just hit like colon and then type in like, it's like on Slack, you can type in like smile, it'll do a smiley face, stuff like that. But yeah, basically like my notes for this episode, I could publish them on like dev.to or something, and it would just accept it because it just looks great. So that's my recommendation. Feel free to check it out. It's called Bear app. It's kind of like Evernote, but I think it's way better than Evernote.
I don't think that I ever used Evernote. Ever. No, I'm just joking. I've been using Notability for a long time. And, but yeah, the one that you're talking about, I mean, just having the ability to export in all sorts of like different, file types, that's really cool. Yeah. So I'm going to check it out.
You should. On this note too, that I'm going to recommend, because I'm never going to recommend it again, it's called Todoist. And I use it.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
I use it for groceries for the most part. I don't really know why I like it for groceries, but I also started using it for project management too, because it's kind of like a personal, cheaper Asana. And it's really great. You can do like your own like Scrum board, or you can have like just reminders, or you can just do like to-dos. I think you can have a calendar. Yeah, there's a calendar in here. And this one is like, I think $2 a month. It's like stupid. So it like works way better than anything else I've used on this. So yeah, I like it. You can have templates, and I don't know why I love it for groceries. I guess it's the templates, but I recently did start using it for project management, and I have my ADHD has thanked me. So
well, so like I feel like there a lot of platforms or like services like that, like out like that one out there, but it's cool to like get some firsthand experience, like, or like your feedback since you've used it, because I can appreciate like a good application that allows you to like organize your life. I mean, there's so much going on as it is, so like just by organizing like what you need to get from the grocery store. Like I only use the Notes app, and I create checklists, like the checklist little button. And I find that helps. But for other things, like for school, I still use Trello. I don't know if Trello is the best thing, but I've been using Trello for like 2 years or so. So just moving, like creating cards and then moving the cards and setting due dates and that kind of stuff. Right. But yeah, I mean, there are so many options out there nowadays. But yeah, it's I appreciate like a good, app that allows you to like organize your life and make things look pretty. And because I feel like that's another thing, it looks pretty, you want to use it again. It's as simple as that.
It's like also motivating to stay organized because it's a fun thing to use.
Yeah.
But going back to what you said with the checklist and the Notes app for iPhones, I don't know why I'm like this. I really don't like it, but I have to use like the Notes app, and then I have to use another to-do app like separately, just for like planning out what I want to eat for the week, like for groceries and stuff. Like I'll put all the meals that I want in the Notes app with the check marks, and then I'll do like sub check marks for the ingredients that I know that I need. So then once I approve of all of that to myself, then I move it all over to the to-do app, and then I have categories for the sections of Whole Foods, so I know like where to go, and then I can like make sure I didn't forget certain things, even though like I can just walk if I forget something, but I don't want to do that. So and like I know like that I'll have everything I need for the things that I'm gonna make.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like without a grocery list, I can't walk into a grocery store anymore because I always forget something. So I make it a point to like, before I leave my car when I park at the grocery store, I already have like the list opened up and I'm like, okay, does this have everything? Because I might grab something extra, if I see like a BOGO, or if I see like a deal, or like the produce looks really nice. But I always ended up forgetting until I started like, writing things down and like keeping track of like lists and things like that. So yeah, it's I think it comes with age.
Right. I think so too. Yeah. Did you finish Atomic Habits or get deeper in it at all?
Oh no, not yet. I think I haven't read it in a couple of days, but I'm still making my way through it. Did you finish yours?
I did.
Ooh, look at that.
I did. I'm a changed man.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah, it's life changing. Everybody go read it. I loved it.
Yeah. I think I think the second chapter, I don't know if it was second chapter or second unit or whatever. I got a little bored because I felt like he was being very redundant, in like how, you don't have to, you're not supposed to change this. You have to change your habits. And I was like, okay, I get that. Let's move on.
Yeah. It gets really like technical and crazy.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's what I'm looking. Good. Yeah, no, that's what I'm looking forward to. But it's I recommend it. Like just what I've read so far, I think it's it's something that you can take like a couple of things from for sure. But yeah, still a work in progress.
You are, or the book?
The book. Well, yeah, me too. Like if you don't live and learn and and get better, then what's the point?
What's the point?
Right.
Man, getting deep. All right.
Right, yeah.
Well, we're too deep. We got to go. So.
I know. It's Halloween. Let's take it easy.
Oh my gosh. Oh, and
almost Halloween.
And then
tomorrow.
It's tomorrow. But for the listeners, it was a week ago. So.
Yeah.
It will be. Oh, when this comes out, I think it'll be my birthday or the day before my birthday.
Okay.
25.
Next weekend already. Yeah.
So I got.
Ooh, wait, you're turning 25?
Yeah, I'll be 25.
No way. Oh, look at you growing up.
I know. I'm.
Yeah.
It's finally an age I can remember that I am.
Yeah. Right.
Because ever since I turned 20, I'm like, okay, like I don't know anything else between that.
Right. Yeah. I feel like every year after 20, it's just like, oh, it's just another year. But then I turned 31 this year and I still have to like stop and think about how old I am. I'm like, how old am I? I've stopped to like caring about it. Honestly.
All right.
I only feel it in the knees.
In the knee.
Getting old joints.
Right. All right. Well, Tech heads out.
On that note.
Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you in 1 week. Peace out.
Bye, guys. Happy Halloween.